Her stepmother sold her to a blind beggar for just 200 Naira. Nara was a beautiful and cheerful girl. She was only 9 years old when her life changed forever. She lived in Lagos with her father, a loving man who had raised her alone after her mother passed away when she was just a baby. Life had been simple, but filled with love. One day, her father came home from work and told her that he had decided to remarry. And beyond him getting a wife, Nara also needed a mother figure in her life, someone she could see as a mother. And so her father remarried. They had a beautiful traditional marriage ceremony. Nara was very happy, and so her father's new wife, Abigail, moved in with her 2 sons, and shortly after, Nara's world slowly began to unravel. At first, Abigail seemed kind, but it wasn't long before her true nature revealed itself. She favored her sons, and soon began treating Nara as an outsider in her own home. One fateful day, on his way to work, Nara's father suffered a terrible accident that left him paralyzed and confined to a wheelchair. The doctors were uncertain if he'd ever walk again. This really broke Nara. She prayed every day for a quick miracle, but nothing happened. Instead, her father's health got worse by the day. Abigail's attitude toward Nara also worsened. She complained endlessly about the burden of taking care of Nara and her father. Even though her father owns the house they live in and had some investments from which they were managing, Abigail never stopped nagging. She insisted that they couldn't manage. She often complains that they could no longer survive on the little coming from her husband's investments. Even her meager income goes all into the house. One day, Abigail made a decision that would change Nara's life forever. She told Nara that she could no longer stay in the house and that she would be sent to live with a friend in the countryside who would take care of her. She had assured her father that the friend was well-to-do and would care for Nara very well. Plus, Nara would always visit them. Her father hesitated, but with his deteriorating health, he couldn't do much. Plus, he trusted his wife. Nara, too young to question it, packed her small bag and followed Abigail to the bus stop, hoping that wherever she was going, life would be better. After a long journey, they arrived in a remote village in Kogi State. Abigail led Nara to a small, crumbling hut at the edge of the village, where an old blind beggar sat by the door. Nara was confused. This didn't seem like the home of a friend. But before she could ask any questions, Abigail called out to the beggar. She said, "I've brought her. At least now you'll have someone to guide you as you move around to beg." "I don't want her. Nobody wants her. She is completely worthless," she added. Nara, confused with tears in her eyes, pleaded that her stepmom would stop, but she continued. She pushed Nara toward the beggar and said, "Take her. I'm leaving immediately." The beggar stretched out his hand toward the air as he tried to grab Nara. The beggar then said, "Thank you, I need the help. I will take care of her, but you know I don't have much to offer for the help. This is all I have," he said, stretching out an envelope from his pocket. Abigail dragged the envelope and left without saying a word. Nara's heart sank. She had been sold. Sold to a blind beggar. Fear washed over her as she realized the depth of Abigail's cruelty. Weeks passed and she realized that the beggar was not what she expected. Though he was rough around the edges, he was kind to her. He never raised his voice or treated her with malice. Instead, he taught her how to beg for coins in the village, and she took care of him, cooking their small meals and helping him navigate his way around. Days turned into months, and while life was hard, the beggar never mistreated her. He was the only comfort Nara had in her new life, but she often thought about her father and the life she had left behind in Lagos. She dreamed of going back, but there seemed to be no way out. Then, one fateful evening, while Nara sat by the roadside, begging as she did every day, she overheard 2 women talking in hushed tones. "Did you hear? That girl's father has died," one of them said. Nara's heart froze. She didn't understand. She felt an uneasy feeling about her. She said they couldn't be talking about her because no one knows her here. It couldn't be her father. She walked home with the beggar, pondering these words. Later that night, Nara slept and saw her father in her dreams. The first time she would see her father in her dreams. She dreamt that she lost some money and was crying about it. And her father walked up to her, cleaned her tears, and assured her that everything would be fine. She was surprised to see her father walking. He then said she shouldn't worry. He is in a better place. He loves her, and that all will be well soon. She woke up feeling chills all over her. Then she knew that her father, the only living person who had ever truly loved her, was gone. The weight of that loss crushed her, and she felt utterly alone in the world. Meanwhile, far away in Lagos, her father's sister, Auntie Grace, returned from abroad upon hearing of his death. She was the only family Nara had left, and though she hadn't been in touch for many years, she was determined to find her niece. Upon her return, she was shocked to find Nara missing. Abigail told a different story, claiming that Nara had run away. But something in Abigail's story didn't sit right with Auntie Grace. After much interrogation, Abigail finally confessed. She had sold Nara to a beggar in Kogi State, hoping to be rid of her. When the officer interrogating her asked for how much, she said she didn't care, although the beggar gave her an envelope and she only saw 200 Naira inside after she left. Outraged, Auntie Grace wasted no time. She contacted the authorities and some friends to begin a search for Nara. Auntie Grace didn't care about the punishment for Abigail yet. Her main concern was finding Nara. Weeks later, after searching tirelessly, Auntie Grace found the small village where Nara had been taken. When she arrived at the beggar's hut and saw Nara sitting beside him, thin and worn, she wept. Nara ran to her, and they embraced tightly, both overwhelmed by the reunion. Through her tears, Auntie Grace asked, "How could this have happened to you?" But Nara, despite everything, spoke kindly of the beggar. "He's been good to me," she said softly. "He's blind, but he never hurt me. He was kind. But I can't stay here, Auntie. I can't stay here like this." Auntie Grace knew Nara was right. Though the beggar had been kind, there was no life for her niece in that village, begging for scraps. Auntie Grace, who had built a stable life abroad, made a decision right there. "You're coming with me," she said, wiping away her tears. "I will take care of you now, just like your father would have wanted." With Nara's hand in hers, Auntie Grace took her away from the life of poverty and hardship, vowing to raise her as her own. Together, they left behind the painful memories of betrayal, and Nara found hope again in the promise of a new beginning. As they boarded the plane to a new life abroad, Nara looked out the window, her heart full of gratitude for the kindness of the blind beggar, but also for the future that awaited her. For the first time in a long time, she felt safe. And though she had been sold for 200 Naira, her worth was far beyond measure, and her journey was just beginning.